Alyshah.
I'm Adam.
And this is the Sibling Connection. So thank you for tuning in to our third episode. That's crazy. Today we're actually going to start reviewing the Marvel movies from the beginning. So between now and the end, we'll do it in order, mostly in order. But we're going to start with Iron Man today. It's really exciting.
Exciting. Yeah, the birth of the MCU. It was a great time just rewatching it from the beginning again. And I hadn't seen the original Iron Man in a long time.
Very long time. I was surprised actually how much I remembered.
Yeah.
And then how much of my memory was skewed.
Mm-hmm.
Because you obviously tweak your memory changes a little bit as the movies kind of go on a little bit, and you get to know the characters a little bit more. But it was really nice to see Robert Downey Jr. right when he was basically a baby. Like he was just, it was very interesting.
Yeah, no, it was a great time just watching from the beginnings of the MCU, really. Seeing, how everything's being set up, like how they introduced Shield into it, and the post-credit scene with Nick Fury initiating the whole Avengers team, like just classic things that you'll always remember. Different things that you forgot or may have misremembered as well. So yeah, definitely we can start with a plot summary.
Yeah.
Just work our way through in that sense. So it starts with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man being an arrogant, cocky little man.
Yup.
Going on a weapons run with the U.S. government in, I believe they said it was Afghanistan.
Yes, it was Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yeah, and the music choice.
Oh, killer soundtrack!
Amazing.
That's what I have to say about Marvel. I think they do a really good job using music throughout their movies to set the mood, right? So it was AC/DC that was playing, I believe. And it was just a really hype song, really gets you going. I think people often overlook how important the soundtrack is to the movie.
Especially when it's used well.
Exactly. It can really get you going. It can really get you into the movie. It sets the mood, whether it's fun, exciting, hype, sad, depressing, all of those sorts of things.
And that song definitely was a good indication of Tony Stark's sort of mood and his personality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so from there, they're in a convoy, armored convoy, and the armored convoy gets blown up.
It sure does.
So that's where the movie starts, and then we start to go on a little journey of discovery as Tony Stark. But then I believe they go back into the past, and they explain that they introduce you to Rhodey.
Yeah.
And the original Rhodey actor, I believe he was only in Iron Man.
Yeah, I believe so.
And then they recast him as Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
In the future movies.
Because it's funny, because Adam was like, "Oh, do you remember him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but that wasn't the same guy I remember, right?" Because you have 26, 27, 28 movies of a completely different character, or same character, different actor. And Adam, you told me that they actually recast it, which obviously makes sense now. But a little bit odd to see a different actor playing the character that we love so much.
Yeah, especially a character who's become so beloved.
Absolutely.
Who's become so
integral.
Entwined with the character of Iron Man itself. And then just seeing that different actor, and I think that's why it's amazing, just doing rewatches and seeing what's new.
Yeah.
And what's different.
And how so much has changed throughout the years. I mean, Iron Man's come out
I think it was
decades
2008.
ago. Yeah. 15 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And so much has changed and so much has developed. And, I think the first thing I thought of when I saw his character and how arrogant and smart and inventive he was a comparison to Elon Musk. That he was so innovative, that he was using his technology to kind of help the government, or at least he thought that he was helping the government, and just this kind of person who would break barriers and try something new, and he became so famous and popular for doing so. It's interesting. It's like you said, they go back into the past and they kind of introduce you to who he is. and the type of person that he is. Um, I would say that he wasn't my favorite character in the beginning of the movie. Now, I was trying to come into it with a clean slate. Like, I don't know who Iron Man is, which is hard when you
Mhm.
know later who he becomes eventually. But um, not my favorite person.
But I think that's why the movie is so brilliant in that sense, where they take a character who's flawed on so many different levels, and then they by the end of it, they have you rooting for him, they have you invested in his story, they have
Yeah,
you invested in his personal life, they have you invested in every aspect of the character. And I think that's just a testament to how amazing of a director Jon Favreau is,
yeah,
and just how amazing that they just hit it out of the park with this first movie.
yeah. They really did.
And you have to hit it out of the park with that first movie, right? Like you see examples of like when Universal tried to do their monsters
Yeah,
like universe, and how their movies just didn't hit it, right?
no,
Like with the new Mummy movie with Tom Cruise, and like
yeah. It was disappointing.
so it just tells you like how important it is to get these movies right. And I think Marvel did it amazingly well with Iron Man.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, you're absolutely right. I think you this movie sets the tone for the entire universe.
Hmm.
You don't create a character that people can love, that people can root for, that people can just it feels like home to them, if they feel connected to it. You, the entire universe will fall apart. They used this movie as the anchor, and I think that was such a smart decision. The next movie obviously is the Incredible Hulk, and I think that we'll be reviewing that as well in the next few weeks. But this one I think was the most perfect example of how to start
Hmm.
something with your fans. It was heartwarming. It was action packed. It had me on the edge of my seat. It was endearing to me. I loved Pepper, the
Hmm.
introduction we got to Pepper Potts. We obviously know that she's so integral to who he is as a person and his journey.
And
Um,
his relationship with his technology, his robots.
yes,
That was
absolutely. I
that
loved
was
it.
fun. That
I
was
think it was
fun.
like definitely some hints of humor in there, and
Yes.
I thought it was a really well done movie.
Hmm. Absolutely.
There was a character that I want to highlight, who saves him
Hmm.
when he gets it, blown up. And like basically he was in an armored car, and there's some action stuff, and basically it's his start to how he becomes Iron Man. And there's this one character that saves him and helps him become who he is inside, and it actually starts that character development for him, that
Yeah,
internal thought process. And his name was
absolutely.
Yinsen, I think.
Hmm.
um, and just I think he's such an underrated character in this movie. We don't really hear a lot about him. You hear a lot, obviously, about Pepper. You hear a lot about Obadiah. You hear a lot about Tony. But he, I think, kick-started everything for this movie. He was such an important character, and he
Hmm.
played his role so well that you feel he's only on screen for a little bit. It's not like he's throughout the movie, but you feel so connected to him. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. But also, like, he's integral to Tony's journey.
Absolutely.
Before Tony meets him, Tony's like this cocky know-it-all, sort of like playboy, everything, right?
Yeah.
After Tony meets him, he realizes that what he's been doing with his life isn't the optimal way to live it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe Yinsen had a line where it's like, "Do you have anybody in your life?"
Mm,
And Tony says no. And then Yinsen's like, "So you have everything, but you have nothing."
yeah.
And I think that was a wake up call for Tony,
Yeah.
because that made him realize. And then from there, you actually see a difference. Like
You
he's
do.
making an effort with Pepper. He's trying to be there. He's trying to be a better person, especially with his decisions with his
Yeah.
company and turning away from weapons manufacturing. I think that all relates back to Yinsen
Yes.
and the work that they did together to create the first Iron Man suit, but
Yes.
also just as a person, Yinsen helped him out of the goodness of his heart.
Yeah.
And I think that really touched Tony.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look around who Tony has in his circle, like, yes, you have Pepper, but she employs, or sorry, he's employing her. So she's an employee. Like, yes, she's there, she's whatever, but it's still an employee.
Hmm.
The only other person he has is Obadiah. Now, let's talk about Obadiah. He is not thinking about Tony. right? He
Well,
has,
at first you don't know. At first it seems like he is.
yeah, but I mean, I think he seems like the type of person that as long as you're doing what I want, I'm your best friend. The second you break away from me and you put your interests in front of mine, that is not okay. And I think when Yinsen came around and did everything out of the goodness of his heart, Tony was like, people do these things? Like these are good people, like because he didn't have those influences around him.
Yeah, because he was an orphan, right? So like his parents were both killed when he was young. He Obadiah was his role model, I
Yes.
guess you could say, when he was growing up, and his real two friends that he has are Rhodey and Pepper. And I think he mentions during the movie too, Pepper, that he doesn't have anybody except for her.
Yeah.
And that's both at the same time very sweet and very sad.
Yeah.
Um,
And you can tell it catches her off guard.
yeah. But then I believe she says the same thing back to him. She doesn't have anybody except for him.
Yeah.
So because work is their everything,
Yeah.
right?
It
They
is.
spend time just at work and with each other.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah. So basically, as we keep going, because of everything that happens when Tony Stark is in the Middle East or in Afghanistan, he decides to turn his company away from weapons manufacturing, and he makes an enemy out of his partner Obadiah Stane, because he's like, buddy, this is we're a weapons manufacturing company. What do you mean we're not gonna do weapons manufacturing anymore? So he goes behind his back and basically he makes his own suit and he fights Iron Man.
So it goes back, like it shows that Obadiah has been trying to kill Tony from the beginning. So the original hit on him when he's doing the weapons after he finished the weapons show or showcase for the US government in Afghanistan. So that was Obadiah. So he had paid for a hit to go on Tony. And so right from the beginning of the movie, everybody trying to kill Tony is Obadiah. Um, and obviously Tony finds that out later, but everything Obadiah is doing, like trying to be like Tony's best friend and all that sort of, it's all an act.
Yeah, it really is.
Because right from the beginning, Obadiah is trying to take the company and trying to kill Tony.
Yeah. It's an interesting how they kind of reveal piece by piece.
Mm-hmm.
I actually liked that a lot. I like how they didn't just say, "Oh, and by the way, it was me all along." It was just kind of he was giving one hint,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, this was me." Then a little bit later, "Oh, and this was me, and this was me." And you kind of start to say, "Oh my god, the whole movie unravels
Mm-hmm.
just because of all of his actions." And honestly, Iron Man was born because of his actions. If you really think
Mm-hmm.
about it, he
Yep.
created the superhero that Tony Stark becomes. Um, Now let's talk about the suits
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
from the first suit that he makes in that cave to the last suit that we see in this movie, what a difference! What a difference, and what a I don't know. I kind of got a feeling inside that I was like, oh my god, yes, like it's kind of like the suit that we know and the suit that we love, and he's becoming that superhero that we all love, and it's just I loved it. Like it felt so nostalgic. It felt
Mm-hmm.
so good.
But at the same time, it just goes to show how brilliant of a man Iron like Tony Stark is, right? Like creating that suit in a cave,
Mm,
right, with Yinsen, like just being able to do that, even though it wasn't like fully functional, like the fact that it was able to do all those things, like shoot a flamethrower, like actually be bulletproof,
yes.
like do what he intended it to do, actually take flight for a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
do all those things built in a cave,
Yeah.
right? And then it goes to like Obadiah actually talking to his scientists that he has on his staff, trying to create the arc reactor,
Right.
right? The miniature one. And they aren't able to do it. And Obadiah's like, Tony Stark was able to do this in a
In a
cave.
cave. Yeah.
Why can't you do it? Right? And they're like, I'm not Tony Stark. So I think that
Yeah,
just
it's
goes to
true.
show like how brilliant of a man he is,
Yes.
but also the fact that even as the movie goes on and he's progressing and you progressively see the improvements to his suits,
Hmm.
it's still not at the end result.
Absolutely not. No.
So like you still see it takes him a long time to put the suit on. Like I know we were making that
We were
comment.
making fun because he puts it on kind of piece by piece, like his robots are putting it on, and I'm kind of thinking, you would think, right? Like he's going to like fight these guys in bigger, better suits. Obadiah's was like literally Tony was like a miniature version against Obadiah's full suit. And we're thinking, Adam and I were laughing about it, and we go, what if he had to put it on in a hurry? Like, what would he do? Like, it would take him so long to put
Yeah.
it on. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I think that just goes to show that yes, he's a brilliant man. Yes, he's improved his process, but there's still so much to learn
Mm-hmm.
and so much to grow. And I think that's just a brilliant way of doing it in the movie because not only does it show that he still has so much to improve on,
Yes.
but it also says that there's more to come,
Yeah.
right? So when this movie came out, I don't know if they were planning on doing the MCU. It ended up working, but this movie laid the seeds for like that sort of expansion
Yes.
on the universe.
Absolutely. Especially at the end, he tells the reporters, I am Iron Man. Um, so I think that was an interesting choice as well. I think it speaks to who Tony Stark is, and like
Yeah.
he still has the ego. Like, don't get us wrong, like he still thinks that he's amazing, and you have obviously see that throughout the MCU whenever he's around. And obviously, this is a spoiler review, but and it's assuming that you guys know what's going on. Sorry if you don't. But you see that kind of throughout, right? And
Yep.
so I think telling the reporters that he is Iron Man was actually makes most sense to who the character is. And
Absolutely. That was completely Tony Stark.
yeah,
Like, um, in the back room, when they're prepping him, and Agent Coulson.
yes,
Obviously, we love Agent Coulson. But when he's handing him the cue cards, and I was just thinking, there's no way Tony Stark is going to say
no,
another man's words.
he's not gonna
There's
follow the
no
cue cards.
way,
No,
no way. And it's just classic Tony,
it
where he's
really
just
is.
like, you know what? I am Iron Man.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely. And
iconic.
again, like I think this goes back to, and we go back to our first review when we were talking about Disney. We go back to how Disney thinks of everything, right? Their Marvel is obviously a subset of Disney, but they're so detail oriented. They're so particular with what they do, what they say, who says it, when anybody's on screen. And I think it was just such a beautifully cultivated movie.
Mhm.
Um, so if you had to say a negative about this movie, what would it be?
I think it sort of plays into the whole because it was the first movie of the MCU. I think it played into the whole exposition thing pretty heavy,
Yes.
and I think that that's a flaw, or not really a flaw, but a thing that happens in the early MCU, right? So there's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of because we're being introduced to these characters.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of backstory. There's a lot of like here's things you need to know, that sort of thing being told. But the good thing about that is that it's being told in interesting ways,
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
right? So it's not just being like you're watching like a history lesson or something like that, right? It's like it's interesting, so you're into it,
Yeah.
but at the same time you're learning about the backstory, you're learning about the history
Yeah.
of the universe. So in that sense, I'd say that's a bit of a con. But also I'd say another one would just be, um, I think it plays into the aspect of what we're seeing sometimes in modern superhero movies, where the end fight is sort of like you're fighting a version of yourself.
Mm.
Um, and I know that could be sort of philosophical in a
Yeah.
sense. You're fighting your own demons, but
Hmm.
and then obviously it ends with a shaft of light into the sky, which I know is a thing that's been going on.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know about the shaft of light. I know we had that in was it Suicide Squad as well, the original Suicide Squad, and everybody made fun of that. But um yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with you, Adam. I think just with the exposition piece, I mean, the first movie of any kind of series goes really heavy on that sort of stuff. I think to their credit, I think they did it really well.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it in a way that kind of connects you emotionally to the characters. So at
Mm-hmm.
least, sometimes it's actually quite boring.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of
Yeah.
like, oh my God, when is the action starting? I didn't personally feel that too much
Hmm.
on this part. But I would say that would be my only kind of critic.
Hmm.
So let's do our ratings. What would
Yeah,
you rate it?
I'd give it a 4 out of 5. You know, it's a very solid movie. Definitely a good kickstart to the MCU. Absolutely, and when we look back at it, it's iconic in
Yeah,
the sense where, you know, before this movie came out, Iron Man was a C-list comic character.
yeah,
And it was definitely a choice to kickstart the MCU and make Tony Stark and Iron Man the star of the MCU from, you know, his comic book origins and history.
yeah.
And I think they just did it masterfully, and kudos to them. Like it was an amazing movie, even to today's standards.
Yes,
When you
absolutely.
look back at it, it's like this is a good time.
Yeah,
So yeah, definitely 4 out of 5 and highly recommend.
yeah. I would say my rating is a 4.25 out of 5, just a little bit higher than this. Um, I absolutely echo everything you said. I think the casting, spot
Mm, mm,
spot on. Like I could not think of a better actor to play Iron Man. Just I think he's able to kind of exhibit every single part of Tony Stark, in like Robert Downey Jr. In his acting, and I just absolutely amazing. I think it is a must watch. Um, we watched it obviously on Disney Plus, but if it ever came back to the theaters, I think I would definitely go watch it like on that big screen with the
mm.
soundtrack and those big speakers and see everything on a really beautiful screen. Um, but absolutely loved it, and I think that you guys should watch it too. If you haven't already, or rewatch the entire Marvel universe with us, and do it with us, and drop your comments below. Let us know what your rating is, and please like and subscribe to our channel. And we will be back in a couple of weeks with our next video.
Yes.
Thank you.